gave myself the title, the Dharma in Times of War and Peace, something like that. It has been a really challenging time for us. Pandemics, fires, floods, and now so much violence towards other nations, and also so much violence in our own selves. We're killing each other right down the road here for no apparent reason that we know. So I've been formulating a prayer, at least for a couple of years, based on some of the work of Desmond Tutu and also Marion Williamson, which of course is based in the teachings of Jesus. Love your enemies, bless those that curse you, pray for those who despitefully use you. We know those little lines on the map don't represent what's true. There is no such thing as Russia. There's no such thing as the Ukraine. From the absolute point of view, we are one human family killing each other. And so let's work on the Dharma, creating peace within, between, and among everyone, and refusing to hate anyone. Refusing to do a pseudo-speciation, what the great child psychoanalyst Erik Erikson called pseudo-speciation. You ought to know, he was silenced in our American universities after he escaped the Holocaust. And he, during the McCarthy era, refused to sign those little sheets of paper that said he wasn't going to speak out. He wasn't going to do whatever it is they didn't want him to do, and it didn't seem to affect his career in any way. But he would say that pseudo-speciation is anything we attempt to do to make anyone separate from us, whether it's race, nation, class, color of someone's skin. It's not real. We're all one. So I started to create this prayer for forgiveness and reconciliation. And I'll just read just a little bit of it. It's a really long prayer, because we have a really lot to be forgiven for, right? And I start out saying that universal forgiveness and reconciliation is important because truth-telling leads to healing ancient wounds. And one of my teachers, Basil Braveheart, a Lakota Sioux, a Korean War veteran who's 88 years old, has been doing intergenerational, intercultural forgiveness work. And it's really amazing when he brings together Native Americans in his own little community and the families who massacred them at Wounded Knee. And they do forgiveness work together, and they pray together, and they sing together. And he and one of his friends, who is a grandson of General Harney, who was the leader of the massacre at Wounded Knee, came together and petitioned the government to change the name of the peak where they live, which is their sacred peak of their mountain, from Harney Peak to Black Elk Peak. And you know that when spirit wants something done, it happens. Like, we couldn't believe, first of all, that these people came together, right? And that they were praying for forgiveness for each other, and like the Harney family said to the Braveheart family and a lot of the people whose relatives were killed, forgive us. And then Basil said to them, and the family said to them, forgive us. So for anything, intentionally or unintentionally, anything I did or any of my relatives did, please forgive us. It's so healing. It's what they call in the Hawaiian tradition, a ho'oponopono, right? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. So I start out with this thought from Desmond Tutu when he was asked to serve, right as he went into retirement, he was asked to serve on the Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. You know, like he just wanted to retire. And I can't think of anything worse. I can't, than having to sit and listen to people tell you truthfully about all the atrocities. You know, the horrific atrocities. There are pictures of Desmond Tutu just flailing, just crying, like not unconsolable, sobbing, just listening to the horrors of what people did to people. And yet, when he died, I don't know if you've seen him on video, he and the Dalai Lama have a happiness project, a joy project, a movie they did on joy. I mean, they look like 8-year-old boys, you know, just, you know, messing with each other. Desmond Tutu takes his cross and goes like this to the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama takes, you know, his robe, Mark goes like this. I mean, they're so adorable. And, you know, the joy and the love that comes through being a stand for forgiveness, being a stand for love, for believing in the possibility of peace on earth, is just incredible to behold. So if you get the chance, go look up Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama's projects on happiness and joy. There's actually free online training on how to be more happy. You can take like a course, and it's for free, based on what they learned about forgiveness and happiness. So Desmond Tutu, the name of his book he wrote about his process of reconciliation is There Is No Future Without Forgiveness. So I start by saying to the nations of the indigenous people of the Americas, as a citizen of the world, I say, please forgive me and please forgive us. On behalf of our ancestors, I deeply apologize for the wrongs intentionally or unconsciously that have been inflicted upon you and your children. And to all African Americans, for the injustice and cruelty of slavery and systemic racism throughout the history of the Americas, please forgive us. You have been harmed, and your brilliance and courage and compassion has not been valued. May the atrocities of racism be reconciled, and may there be a correction and a resurrection in the minds and hearts of all people, that never again shall anyone be enslaved, persecuted, or deemed unworthy due to the color of their skin or the nation of their origin. And this next paragraph, actually, I have to thank all of you for, because before I met Deng Mingdao and before I came to Oroville, I had no idea about what happened to the Chinese people. That was like a whole part of my history I never got. So, and it's different. Mingdao is so brilliant. He teaches me all the time about the differences in the way that people are raised and how that affects their identity. So to Chinese Americans, to American Chinese, and to all Chinese people, for the suffering that you endure and that you endured, and the injustice and the hatred and the prejudice that kept you from being recognized and respected for the myriad of work you've done to build this country, its railroads, its mines and mines. Please forgive us. And to the Japanese Americans, for the trauma of internment and the pain that you suffered through our unjust actions that separated and shamed you, our sisters and brothers and citizens of our country, please forgive us. And, you know, like I said, this is a very, very long prayer. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just this one more paragraph, because every time someone says, I stand for Ukraine and I pray for Ukraine, I usually say, I stand for Russia, I pray for Russia, because they're my brothers and sisters too. We pray as one human family for our sisters and brothers in Africa, Afghanistan, Cuba, Iraq, Iran, Ecuador. These are places where there are currently wars. The Gaza Strip, Mexico, Palestine, Israel, Turkey, Russia, Ukraine, Yemen, and all over our world. May all people be safe from harm. May all men, women, and children be cherished and protected. May wars cease and peace prevail on earth. Thank you. That's just part of the prayer. It's an ongoing process. And because I feel so strongly, because of who my parents were, because of who my teachers were, because of who I am, I feel so strongly to be an advocate for peace and negotiation and other ways of solving conflicts and wars. At many of the churches I've been at, people say to me, you really ought to be a Unitarian Universalist church minister, right? Because they're the ones that are socially active, not unity people. We don't talk about these things in unity churches. So I've been writing for our local newspaper since I got there, and I'm their guest columnist. So even though I don't talk about this a lot in church because it makes unity churches uncomfortable, I write about it in the paper. And even recently, I think this is a sign of our times. At the Unitarian, Universalist, and Quaker churches that I give messages to, I make them uncomfortable. I make them uncomfortable, right? And I say, I'm really sorry. If they say to me, like one Unitarian Universalist church just said to me, we want you to talk about peace, but we don't want you to talk about Ukraine. I said, then you don't want me to talk. You know, like I'm not going to be censored. I'm not going to be muzzled. And I will say, I don't know that what I'm saying is true, because we can't say what's true. The Tao that can be spoken is not the Tao. But I'm an adult. So I want to know from everybody's point of view what they think the truth is. I do not want to be censored, and I don't like that my friends are being censored. But I woke up one morning and Chris Hedges, the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, you know, they took all of his things down and they confiscated all of his interviews with Noam Chomsky, you know, with, you know, scholars and scientists. I mean, he did the Hokiest program. It basically was just an interview with authors. And, you know, he called it On Contact. And, it should have been on PBS or something. It could have been well done. But, I mean, he just did it as a YouTube thing. And to think that in our country, they thought that was threatening. I mean, young journalists like Matt Taibbi, who writes for the Rolling Stone, they shut him down. And I say, I want to hear from Russia. I want to hear from China. I want to hear from India. I don't not want to hear different points of view. I'm an adult, I'm not a child. Please do not censor me. So I think that's really an important thing, because we're unity. We understand the blind man and the elephant. You know that story? And I'm holding onto the hoof and I'm trying to describe the truth. And somebody else has got the tail and they're trying to describe the truth. And somebody's under the belly of this giant beast and they're trying to explain the truth. And somebody's holding onto the trunk and they're trying to explain the truth. Well, it's all true, but it's only a piece of the elephant. And so if we keep ourselves from trying to understand other people, we have no empathy. We have no capacity to understand them. because we're only holding on for dear life with the trunk, and that's all. And we're defending it with our life. And our country needs empathy. Our country needs active listening. I want you to hear from Ty, from Thich Nhat Hanh, what he says about creating true peace from his incredible experience in Vietnam, where everyone he knew in his village was killed. Can you imagine that? Every person he knew was killed. And I remember him saying that he was so angry that he had to walk. Like some of you that participated in meditative walking, he had to do that practice all night long until he felt that he could be peaceful enough to do a funeral for his village. That kind of strength is something I can't comprehend. I mean, sometimes I write articles for a little local paper commenting on the war. The other day I wrote one, I thought, if I had a pen, it would be exploding right now. Maybe I need to sleep on this because this is too angry. I really don't want to put that out in the world, so I need to revisit this, So I sent it to a few friends, including Ming Dao. He's like, yeah, I think if you want to be a little more effective, you might tone this down a little bit. I'm just trying to make you a more effective writer, So this is what Ty says. If one country attacks another, it's out of great fear and a kind of collective ignorance. For instance, the French fought to keep Vietnam as their colony because they thought that if they possessed Vietnam, they would be happy. So they sent many young men to kill and be killed. But we know when we look deeply that happiness does not come by possessing something or someone. It comes from kindness and compassion, from helping to ease suffering. If the American people had sat down and practiced looking deeply, they would have seen that the Vietnam War was entirely unnecessary and that their own lives could not be improved through the suffering of another country or the suffering of their own young men and women. The United States senselessly wasted many lives in the Vietnam War. This is, I think, Ty's brilliance. If only both North and South Vietnam had been supported in their different models of development, helping the communists and the non-communists alike to build a democratic, equitable society. This would have made such a more wise and amazing outcome. After a long period of suffering, these countries are finally moving in that direction. But this could have happened so much earlier without such terrible loss of life. I love that. I love that he's holding the possibility of us having a deeper understanding and a far greater vision of what's possible for humans. I've been contemplating principles, like what are we living by? And in Unity, we have 5 principles, and I decided that we needed 2 more. So I wrote to Shad Groverland and said that I'm giving you 2 more principles. So here's my 5 principles. They're the same ones that you have in Unity, but for those of you that don't know them by heart. Our first principle, well, let me just say that Connie Fillmore, the granddaughter of the Fillmores, tried to come up with these. She tried to come up with universal principles that depicted what unity is all about. And the first one that is God is the source and creator of all. And that 2, we are spiritual beings created in the image and likeness of God. And then 3, we create our life experiences through our thinking. and I add, through our words, our sounds, our vibrations, and our actions, because they all go together for me. There is a creative power in affirmative prayer and silent meditation. That's number 4, which opens our awareness to the universal force of good. And then 5 is knowledge of these spiritual principles is not enough. We must practice them. So here's my 2 additions. Unity does not claim any special revelation. Unity sets us free to think, grow, and learn. Unity encourages lifelong learning and respect for differences of opinion, culture, practices, thought patterns, and language. Unity, by its very name, refuses to be separated by dogma or isms. We seek to find the points of agreement and universal wisdom inherent in all true spiritual traditions. Now, I shared with you that I've been writing articles since I moved there for my newspaper, and I have gotten not a single hate mail. My friends, who are history professors and theologians of other kind, have gotten a lot of hate mail. And we joke about it. I don't know why that is, but I think it's this. Myrtle Fillmore taught the letter writers in Unity, and I was one of them. They rolled after her, and every director after them said, when you get the hate mail, look at the points of agreement. Make note of that, and then simply bless them. There's no reason not to. What are you trying to prove, right? And so to be able to communicate something that is a little provocative but not offensive, I think I learned that in Unity. Not that people aren't going to be like, sometimes my brother-in-law, like the other day I sent him something I wrote and he just asked me a question, and then I decided that maybe I needed to reframe something I wrote. And he was like, no, I just am really asking that question because I don't know. And let me tell you, I was completely speechless at the end of your writing. And I had to laugh because he's an editor of newspapers, and I don't ever remember him ever being speechless, you know? So I guess it's good, you know, to be able to communicate in that way. That's a little edgy, but not so horrible that it's just completely discarded. And that's unity, you know, because we have to be able to find a way to communicate that we can hear each other, respect each other, listen to each other, and honor that we disagree. And I hear you. Like my brother-in-law is a complete, everybody should be vaccinated right now person. And that's because I later learned, after just being completely offended by him several times, that he went through some really difficult times in his childhood with people who were in iron lungs. You know, he understands the power of vaccination, you know, and is a strong ally for that. And I have to respect that, right? And I hope that he can find it in his heart to respect that some people just can't be vaccinated for whatever their higher good is for themselves. Number 7 of my principles, there's no one right religion. Unity is not a religion. Unity was founded as an educational movement informed by the teachings of Jesus Christ and all evolving spiritual truths. Our co-founders studied the world Bibles, but they told us our goal is to use and prove the truth revealed to us by Jesus and all great universal wisdom teachers and the Spirit within us. You don't have to leave your religion to join Unity. Unity just asks us one thing: to go deeper and to aspire to be a unifying force of love and light to all people, because just that word itself, unity, it leaves nobody out. Thank you. I love you. You are back here.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. And now